In this video, I'm going to cover when and how to use single quotation marks. So in American English, we normally use double quotation marks, which look like this right here. And we use these around when we borrow quotations from another source or when using titles for shorter works. Now, single quotation marks, you can see are here, and they're just like these single upside down commas. And what they're used for is to basically replace using the double quotation marks. And there's a couple situations where we want to do that. And that would be when there's a quotation within a quotation or a title within a title. So I'll give you examples of those. So for the first example, maybe there's a smaller quote within a larger quote that you want to use in your paper. So we can look at these examples from a scholarly article that I pulled up. So the passage highlighted is what I want to quote, and you can see within this quote that there's some double quotation marks for a little section that they're quoting. In this example, my source is quoting another source. Now, if I want to put this in my paper, here's the problem. So let's say I want to say Eisenbies and Kippenberg state the purpose of their research as follows. In the present paper, we address the relevant question, what conditions do support ethical leadership impact, and offer a moral information processing perspective on ethical leadership. Now, how this is confusing is I need to put the passage I'm quoting from my source in double quotation marks. But within this quote, there are double quotation marks. So my reader might be a little confused saying, well, where does the quote, like, does it start here and end here? And then is there another quote here to here? It would just be confusing for them. So how we want to avoid that is by using single quotation marks. And you can see sort of the same thing going on in this example down here with I'm borrowing a quote that the source itself used. Here's my quote, there's theirs, and we have the same problem. Where are these quotes really beginning and ending? So the solution is for the large quote that I'm borrowing from the author, the whole sentence, I use the double quotation marks on the outside. And then for the inside quote, I put in single quotation marks to distinguish and say, hey, this is a quote within this larger quote. I'm not starting a new quote, okay? And then for down here in the second example, you can see I've done the same thing. So for the passage that I'm quoting here, which is the commonly shared definition, I start my quotation marks here for the big source, and then for the little passage that they're quoting, I put that in the single quotation marks as well. All right, now here's another example that may be common for some of you. Let's say you have to write an essay for your literature course, and you've been given a novel, and there's dialogue in the novel, and maybe you want to quote it to support your point. So dialogue uses quotation marks just to show words that are spoken out loud. Now, when we go to quote in a paper, this can be pretty straightforward if we're just going to quote one line of dialogue. So here's my dialogue down here in the story. My drawings don't help. And if I just want to quote that, there's no problem. But maybe I want to quote this whole passage here. And we're going into dialogue, out of dialogue, because there's no quotation marks, and back into dialogue. So how would I quote that? Because if I do the quotation marks for the dialogue, and then leave this, it could look to the reader like my father said nothing is a part of my own words, when it's really a part of this quote up here. So what would I do? So the answer is to use single quotation marks. So I could take the whole passage of dialogue, which is all three of these sentences highlighted in yellow, and I would surround them with my double quotation marks to show the entire quote. And then for the internal dialogue, I would just put in single quotation marks. This shows my reader that my drawings don't help was spoken dialogue. My father said nothing is a part of the narration in the novel, but it's not my own words. And then I'm going back into the dialogue in the novel. All right, for the third point, which is titles. So let's say you have to write an essay on Shirley Jackson's short story, The Lottery, okay? And you find an article to use for your essay titled The Lottery, A Reflection on Conformity. Now, the rules for punctuation state that short stories, like The Lottery, their title should be put in double quotation marks. And we also have the problem, though, that when in a written sentence, the title of an article should be in double quotation marks too. So you see here I have another little problem. I have The Lottery, which needs double quotation marks, and then the whole article, which needs these double quotation marks. So to help this look a little better and be clearer for the reader, I would then change the short stories quotation marks to these single ones, and I would keep the double quotation marks for the title of the entire article. All right, I hope these 3 tips help you know how to use single and double quotation marks.